Shanti. This is our first session. We've had many sessions, but this is our first session. Keeping the mind free from contamination and interference. How far have you been able to achieve that? All of us have to deal with it. Interference, impositions, contamination from all kinds of inputs, and from the inside, from memories. And in yoga, as it is talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, there are some methods which are very ancient and very powerful. Human nature has changed very slowly over the ages, and it has been a deterioration over time because time causes aging, and that means deterioration. The deterioration of the human ability to handle contamination and interference over a long, long period of time. So in yoga, there is that understanding that we are eternal, immortal, spiritual beings occupying temporary bodies which need to be replaced from time to time. And as time goes by, the quality of the body that we get also deteriorates because matter even deteriorates. So contrary to the theory of evolution, it's a little bit the opposite direction. And so the purpose of yoga, which is in the cycle of time, something that is especially there at a time when one time cycle finishes and the next time cycle comes along. And so these are long time cycles. So the maximum amount of deterioration has taken place. So this is as bad as it gets, so don't worry. And the purpose of yoga is to take that energy which restores the spirit to its original condition, and when that is accomplished, then matter automatically corresponds to the condition of the spirit. And so yoga is a process of many things. I talked a little bit about purification and purging, and also in the process of deterioration there is something equivalent to oxidization or rusting, which means that the components of the soul and the body are rusty. So that has to be also restored to its original condition. And the experience of our consciousness being interfered with and contaminated and messed around with by external sources is absolutely common to everyone. And in the process of yoga, one part of it is the meditation, and another part of it is to use the accumulated strength to apply that power to particular areas that you want to work with at particular times. So it is said that what we need to establish is equilibrium. So equilibrium between, for example, praise and defamation. And when you experience praise, you don't mind. It doesn't disturb you. You feel. But when you experience defamation, then it's not so pleasant. You don't like it. It deflates you and irritates. But for yoga to be proved, it has to be shown in the establishment of this equilibrium in the face of these different pairs of opposites, so that when we experience praise, why do people praise us? It's basically to make us vulnerable, because then they can stick a knife in, because you're not closed. You see, if they straight come with some opposition, you close. They stay on that side, but they need to open you to put it in. Yeah? And so therefore, we need to understand this process of humans' inhumanity to humanity, individually and collectively. It's just one of those things. But it is also said for the yogi is a spiritual warrior, so we have to be skilled in combat. So, what do we have to combat? It is basically sparring with circumstances in order to hone the skills so that whatever circumstances come along, you are equipped and competent to maintain your position, your inviolability, your invulnerability, and your self-regard. And if we are not in equilibrium in the face of pairs of opposites, then we lose points. And then that's not comfortable, right? So, praise and defamation. Another one is victory and defeat. We like to be victorious, we don't like to be defeated. And the disequilibrium in the face of these pairs of opposites is what is meant by the ego. So where there is ego, praise, yes, I am great. Defamation, how dare you? I will. And then it prevents you from maintaining pure karma. Now we want to maintain pure karma because that too is a power. So to be able to be in equilibrium in the face of praise and defamation, victory and defeat is the indicator of stability, strength. And in the mythology that is associated with yoga, there are names which refer to the internal attainments. And one of them is Yudhisthira. Yudhisthira is the name of the elder of the 5 brothers of your being. And that is the one who remains firm in battle. This is the one who is achieving the kingdom. So the kingdom is something that you have when you have claimed all your rights and you understand power People desire power because they're weak. If you're powerful, you don't desire power. You're already powerful. But people want power, political power, financial power, other kinds of expertise, strength, physical strength. So power, we have to understand how to hold it, how to wield it, how to use it, how to not be corrupted by it, and how to not abuse it. So a weak person desiring power, getting a little bit of it, gets corrupted and abuses it, and there's a lot of damage done. But a yogi, there's one word that we heard about in our study this morning, tapasvi raj. I told you tapasya yesterday, remember tapasya? So tapasya is what you do, tapasvi is what you are. So tapasya is the striving, and tapasvi is the person who strives, strive for excellence. Tapasvi Raj is the king who does this. So it's a high level. So think about your triggers. If there is someone in your life who gets to you, there should be someone in your life who gets to you, because your life is like you're the sun in the middle and you have all these planets around, good, bad and crazy ones. These are the people who trigger your weaknesses. Because if you don't have people who do that, you will not know what your weaknesses are. Because weaknesses hide. And when you have someone or some individuals in your life who are particularly skillful in getting to you, disturbing you, messing you up, and, springing your triggers every time, that's a very important person, because without that person, you will not be able to develop the skill of neutrality in the face of this type of provocation. And neutrality means that that thing may be happening, but it doesn't trigger anything. An analogy which is also to amplify the point is when you have chronic pain. Maybe sometimes you have chronic pain of some kind or another. And pain management, you could take good drugs, but then you become an addict, which means very weak. And so when people have chronic pain, they have to decide, shall I become an addict? And if the answer is no, I think not, rather not do that, then you have to have a different relationship with the chronic pain, which is something like, it is there but you don't mind. Because when pain is there, you mind. But if it's there and you don't mind, that means you have a different relationship with it. And it doesn't have the upper hand. You're able to actually create a friendship with it. And you work with it, not against it. So in the development of our essential deep purity, an attribute or a proof of that is that we achieve this neutrality, this equilibrium in the midst of these pairs of opposites. And the nature of the world, the spiritual world and the material world is, everything needs to be in balance. You have to have the praise side as well as the defamation side in order to achieve the equilibrium. So our relationship with the thing that puffs up our ego needs to be sorted out, just as our relationship that deflates the ego needs to be sorted out so that we can become ego-less. Ego-less doesn't mean that you don't have a sense of self, but it means that you are neutral about these opposing energies, which are the sign when you're not neutral about it. That's a sign that you have the ego problem or the weak soul, weakness in the soul. So the most important thing, I think, at this point is to try to identify these recurrent triggers. And if there is a person or group of people or institution or even part of the body that again and again and again gives you a hard time, and that maybe up until now you have thought, this is the most infuriating, undesirable thing in my life, I want to get rid of it, that is going to make it stronger and stronger and stronger, and come again and again and again until you get the message. So there's a message involved, and as you progress in your silence, you do your journaling and so on, it's very useful to have these specific areas to look into deeply, to identify and to know that this is the messenger. Do not kill the messenger or you will not get the message. You need the message, but the method of the messenger to give you the message is very unpleasant. So our relationship with unpleasantness also needs to become neutral. In ancient times, the medical people would give medicine that was bitter. Nowadays, they don't allow you to know that the medicine they're giving you is bitter because they sugarcoat it, or something like that, right? And so people have lost the relationship with bitterness, that the bitter medicine is going to do some good for me. And we take a tasteless pill or an injection or something which prevents us from acquiring the positive relationship with something that is unpleasant to the sense perception. Bitter means unpleasant to sense perception, but good. So when you experience your triggers being triggered, it's unpleasant. And in these modern times, our relationship with unpleasant is, if it's unpleasant, it's bad. And now we need to reconsider that equation. It's unpleasant, it's persistent, equals it's important. I need to I need to know about this because it's a key for me to achieve my equilibrium, and equilibrium or balance means also freedom. When you have a good body and everything is in the right proportions and your arms and legs are having the right length and proper muscles and everything, you don't notice your body. You notice it when it's going wrong or when it's gone wrong. So in the spiritual side as well, we need to not notice our spirit. It's a sign it's in perfect balance. But when you experience in your mind stress, distress, discomfort, agony, whatever it is, this is the signal. Something is out of balance. And there is a word from the Hopi nation, Kayaniskatsi. Do you know this word? Kayaniskatsi means destruction through imbalance. And this is really what the climate change is about, is imbalance. And when there is imbalance, it tends to get more imbalanced. But the work that we want to do here is to have such a power that is able to balance that thing which is going to a tipping point to tip right over, bring it back to balance so that then it can come into a new time cycle in perfect balance. Another analogy is a spinning top. When you spin your spinning top, it's nice, it spins nicely, quietly, but then when it loses energy, it starts wobbling and then it falls over. So we are really in that stage of the time cycle where things are slowing down, they're losing energy, wobbling, and so we need to bring in the energy. So when we're meditating and bringing in the energy that is necessary to keep this thing running, but there's other work that we must do to do with bringing balance, concerned with really looking at these pairs of opposites. Heat and cold is another one. So a human being likes to be at some particular temperature all the time. If it's too cold, if it's too hot, discomfort. So our range of tolerance, of a larger range of heat and cold, will allow us to stay in physical balance regarding the variations of temperature. But I think the greatest difficulty that people have is other people. Jean-Paul Sartre had written this very famous play, Huis Clos, which is about hell is other people. And this person is stuck in hell in a room with somebody that triggers. And you have this to a greater or lesser extent. And in yoga, it will also be said that part of it is to let you know that there is some work you have to do. Another part of it is that to do with karma, that you must have done something so that this is a karmic return. So two things. One is there is some settlement of karma going on. And at the same time as settlement of karma, that same instrument is used to enable you to re-establish the equilibrium. So life is very efficient. Things can play multiple roles at the same time. Very helpful. So when you're identifying the person, the circumstance, the institution, organization, government, whatever it happens to be, that again and again triggers your discomfort, because it hits the ego, then you know, okay, I have this ego problem, and I need to have equilibrium. One must have tolerance. One must have discernment, because if you cannot immediately identify and name what the problem is, you will easily assume it to be what it presents itself as being, like an irritation. You say, this is an irritating person, therefore I want to get rid of it. But that's not the right discernment. This is to let me know I'm still very susceptible here and I need to strengthen myself in this area. So thank you very much, irritation. I really appreciate your appearance today. I will get on with my work. And that gives you a very different angle on it, you see. And that whenever your angle on it is negative, you're pushing it away, you're increasing its amount of irritability on you. And this can shift into a mental or physical illness. And can't possibly be fatal. Don't die too soon because you have work to do. I'll tell you. Then on the other hand, you look at the opposite. If we're looking at defamation, usually people don't like to be insulted, disregarded, disrespected, put down, diminished, abused, etc., etc. So then on the other side, it means you're susceptible to flattery. That's not good. Because then you become a slave. And you cannot be a king and a slave. You have to decide which one. Slavery, aside from being illegal, is not really a choice that you would choose. But it's very important to discern, I am giving away my power, I am allowing someone to mess me around, manipulate me, and wake up. Don't allow this. So it's also about setting boundaries. A person who is weak desires things to shore up the weak ego. And so honor, respect, reward, recognition, all of this type of thing. It's something that you need to discern. If I'm after these things, I will pay a very high price for nothing, you know. So when you find yourself getting drawn to those, this is also something to really notice, that this is a sign that I am weak. And strong is when you constantly pull in that energy and you apply it to neutralize your weaknesses. So these pairs of opposites are really very helpful to look at, to see where, we could also see in terms of anxiety. What makes you feel anxiety? Under what circumstances are you anxious? What does it make you do in terms of behaviors or susceptibilities? And know that if you go along with that, you're not taking care of yourself. Because it also says in the Bhagavad Gita, a very well-known phrase, but it originates there, that you are your own best friend and your own worst enemy. And so this is a piece of ancient wisdom. But we need to also see that what we do that is really being one's own worst enemy, to allow these ego weaknesses to grow and turn into addictions or personality disorders, because it's up to me. Well, once it's gone past a certain point, you're too weak to do anything about it. But very often it does go past a certain point, and you don't get the message until pretty late on. And then it's very difficult to bring yourself back. But it's okay, bring yourself back anyway. But it means we need to give a lot of importance to the business of empowering the self by bringing that energy into the self and applying power to this work, not to building up the ego, because that's misuse of power. Because when you use your power to build up the ego, you're building up something that is not going to sustain you. It's going to betray you. Because they say, pride comes before a fall. So that means you build up the ego, you will fall down a long way and break all your bones, which is not very interesting. So, neutrality cannot be achieved without personal power. So the energy that you're bringing in is the commodity of power that you apply to where you're weak. And as you become strong, instead of being susceptible, you become progressively more neutral. And you will experience tests to let you know how you're doing. If you think about loss of personal power over a long time cycle, it means that your level of original power is very high, very, very high. And it took a long, long time to use all that energy. You use the energy by living. But when you come to a weak point, you can't really know how high it was because it's too long ago. Too many births ago, you could say. But you do become aware that you're not strong enough to neutralize this persistent, irritating thing that gives you this bad feeling. And so taking in power, you can see that during this retreat we have early morning meditation, then again another meditation. We did 7 o'clock, we did 4 o'clock, we do now, we do a little later, a little later, a little later. You have time by yourself. And on a normal day, you don't have time to do all that, right? But it is said to us that you need to do this 8 hours a day. We say, what? 8 hours a day? With no time for anything. So it means that we need to take the in-between periods of time, in between actions, in between circumstances, to just do this short meditations to top up again and again. Because you take power, then you use it in different test situations, and then you get back to square one. So then you don't have a feeling of progress, because you become like it is said, an hourly wage earner. $10 an hour, and then that's lunch also, finish. But then you want a salary. Don't get it quite so often, but you get a good lot more. Then you want to build capital, because you can't do anything if you don't have capital, which then will earn you interest. So you need to build up your spiritual power in the same way as you would build up financial reserves. And this is why they say money is power. And the power is also like money. And every so often some big thing comes along which costs a lot. But if you have a lot, then you can apply it to your big test, get through your test, because you have energy to do it, and then move on. But you haven't gone all the way down, you've just gone a little way down. And then you have picked up expertise and experience along the way, and then you go further. The mind will begin the self-talk which is antagonistic towards some or another unpleasantness. Right? You experience this? It comes and you start. And as you start, you're using up a lot of energy by doing that. Once you have had the thought once, it's actually enough, but it doesn't stop at once. It goes again, right? So notice as quickly as possible, aha, it's happening, stop. Turn, there is this process called turning. Turning your relationship with something from identifying it clearly as a negative thing that you need to push away, turn that. This is a positive thing which is useful for me, and I need to use it as such, because if I don't, I'm losing all my power. And that's all that happens. It doesn't reduce the irritation to the slightest degree, but it actually increases the force that is creating the disequilibrium. So noticing and turning. And I think it's very important to assert, I am the Tapasvi Raj. This is my function, to work with this negative energy, or apparently negative energy, and turn it and make it useful for me in a positive way. And this is done by willpower. You decide to do it, you apply your will, and you make it happen. And this energy that you bring in, that gives you willpower. If you don't have this energy, you try to apply willpower, but it's stronger than you. So it becomes like a fight that you're not winning. But when you keep up the energy and you notice and you understand what to do, you use it in that way. This is the competent warrior, similar to the person who is doing martial arts, who uses the strength of the opponent to defeat the opponent. And this is how it's done. So this we do in the mind, and that keeps the mind clean and clear. Yeah. So this is how to keep these contaminations and interferences. There are other skills connected with that to do with answers. In France, where I now moved to, this is a very important skill that children learn from very young age, and that you need in adult life, because the culture is all about repartee. And if you're not good in answering sharp with wit, you lose points. That's in that culture. It's not in all the cultures, but it's there. And so it's a very good skill to have internally, because a thought will come which will be antagonistic to your ego. And it can put you down, make you feel depressed or defeated or something like this. But if you have a repartee, then you come back and give it as good as you get and neutralize the situation. This is that you meet an opposing thought with a powerful thought that neutralizes it. Because otherwise you go into that self-talk, which is very negative and produces or increases the weakness, initial weakness. And the key of this is self-esteem. Where the ego is weak and you need to be flattered, honored, respected, regarded, that means there's no self-esteem. And you will use these things instead of self-esteem and call it self-esteem. But it's not. And so real self-esteem comes with deep down recognizing who you are. And this is why we have been meditating on the essential self, the original self, the light, the inside light that is beautiful, powerful, but the light has become dim. But it doesn't mean that it is dim. It just means you have to put more gasoline in the tank. And so put gasoline in the tank, otherwise the car will not run. And this is what this meditation is about, topping it up. So partly it's like a gasoline, partly it's other kind of power. It's many things rolled into one. But we look at different analogies for it to take it apart into bits that can be analyzed so that you can see what this thing is, because it's intangible, it's invisible, and the only instrument you have that can detect it is your mind. And so in yoga, it is said that the thing that betrays you is sense perception. Because we're so engaged in the material world that we rely disproportionately on sense perception to receive information about the total reality that we're in. But sense perception will tell us about the tangible, but it won't tell us about the intangible. So one thing that happens to us when we take in this energy is our mind, which is like a sixth sense, is enhanced in its ability to allow us to detect the intangible and identify it. And then we have a much greater range of information by which to detect what's going on and then what to do with it. So this is very important. And in the time of silence and stillness, you're also practicing to use your senses less. You're not using your mouth to talk with, or your ears to listen to other people's talking, so that's good. And in terms of visible stimulation, we already know what the environment is like. So, this practice of silence is very helpful to allow us to give a little bit more attention to this other sense. You can call it intuition. And it is that the mind can detect things without the senses. You're detecting vibrations which have meaning. You're recognizing where something is dissembling, where it pretends to be something, but it's really something else. So this is using your intellectual faculties as well as your sensibility to detect and identify what's going on in the intangible dimensions. And a lot of this happens in human relationships. And because we tend to see what is tangible and miss what is intangible, we don't interpret what's happening properly. And then we get deceived. So this is why it is said that the sense perception is deceptive. And the symbol for this is the third eye. You have a third eye, but you can't see it. So we have to activate this inner eye, which is able to let us see in the sense of perceive something intangible, but it's there. Just because it's intangible doesn't mean it's not there. And we want to have the same amount of access to the intangible as we do to the tangible, because then we are equipped for the full range of information. So I think a very important general rule to apply to this is to say that what appears to be extremely negative may not actually be, and what appears to be extremely positive may not actually be. And so we need to be open so that we give ourselves, in a sense, time to reevaluate something that we instantly think, well, this is something bad, we have to deal with it as a negative thing, but then maybe apply the principle of waiting, wait and see. Because if you wait, maybe you can see a bit more clearly. And then you wouldn't respond hastily, because a hasty response may not be the right one. So I think that when we reach this equilibrium, this inner purity, what it allows us to do is do the right thing, because you feel it, you sense it, okay, yeah, this is the right thing to do. And sometimes you have to wait a long time, and we get impatient. So when we are in a period where you have to wait, you may feel, I'm not doing anything, I'm not competent, I need to get some advice, again, give away your power. But I think it's very important to be able to wait, because if the time is not right, you have to wait. And there is an image from the mythology about that. And this is the one of the great gurus of the Great War was shot fatally, but it was not a good day to die. So what they did is they shot arrows into the ground, because if he would be lying on the ground, it's like dead if you're a warrior. You must be standing, otherwise you're dead. So then he could lie on these arrows. He had to wait 6 months until the stars were right. And as a warrior, he could not be given food and drink, because that's not his honor. So what they did is they shot an arrow into the ground, and the water came from the ground to his mouth, It's to do with honor. And the sense of your personal honor is quite important. When you're going through difficult times where, the defeat part is running, but you do not identify yourself as a defeated person. It's just that the victory is there, the defeat is there, but in defeat, you're not defeated. But it's like an endurance that has to go on. And so when you have to wait through difficult times, hard times, whatever it is, sustain your honor as you go through that, and keep your self-regard until that time is finished, and then proceed. Because these periods of endurance are also strengthening periods. So one strengthening is from that energy that you draw in meditation, and another very important strengthening is the endurance of very difficult, trying circumstances. It's very strengthening. And because the thing that's weak about an individual is this false ego. And when you're in the defeat part of the equation and you endure great difficulties, this will take out the false ego and give you the humility. Because defeat means humiliation. You can't actually get humility without humiliation. Humiliation is something people don't want or don't like, or whatever. But in the larger scheme of things, it has its place, and it is, when it's there, it means it's necessary. Because everything is about making you strong and experienced. And then you're ready for next test. Mm-hmm. So I will stop there. What I would like us to really think about is equilibrium in the face of victory and defeat, in the face of praise and defamation, to find your balance between it. And think of the victory and defeat, the praise and defamation as planets. You're the sun in your planetary system. And if you know anything of astrology, you know that there are some things that bring positive influence and some things that bring negative influence that you have to deal with. But the sun is not bothered. He's, I'm here, you go around fine, I don't mind. You have your orbits, I'm here shining. So this is you, the sun. So create this picture in your mind of yourself at the center of your universe. They always show the sun smiling. The sun is independent of day and night. The sun shines in the blackness of space. And call to mind the persistent negative trigger and bring it in front of you. And see it in perspective. This is my messenger. Wrapped in the great irritation is the important message. Sit with the irritation. And let it be neutral for as long as it takes. Because you want the message. It is the key to my progress. Without receiving this message, I cannot go to the next level. I must go to the next level at any cost. The price of the message is to endure the irritation neutrally. Find your neutral place and hold it. Find your honor of yourself and hold it. Your truth, your essence. your mind focused on what you want. Move your mind around that topic, that object. Keep rotating. Don't let go. This way, you increase your power of concentration. When you let go, you lose power. Gather all the related thoughts about your focus of attention. Keep moving it around that focus. Otherwise, you lose it. This is work. Remember, you want clarity. You want insight. You want to understand where you're weak and how to make yourself powerful and neutral. Don't let go. Focus. Be with yourself. Be with your honor. Break through any fog. The power of your sunshine dissolves fogginess of the mind. Remain aware of the contrast of the opposites. How are you under praise? How are you under defamation? Remember, observe, catch the contrast. How are you in victory? How are you in defeat? Look at it and come to the middle. Then go to the light beyond. See that triangle. Victory, defeat, the light beyond. It's balance. Then spin the triangle. And arrive at a tiny point of light. Stable, steady, as it spins. Gently let yourself release the focus. Keep the energy with you. Return back to the everyday world.